Whatever you think this game will be, I'm sure that you will not see the twist coming, which is perhaps the perfect encapsulation for this set of surprise releases and updates, since Bee Island is a strategy defense title where you're building on a hex grid, but you're also able to jump into first person to man stationary guns. You're attempting to defend the queen from waves of enemies, but in between the shooting, you have to build factories, research technology, and expand the hive, being pretty neat and is flying under the radar. A beautiful looking visual novel title is Ghostpia Season 1, which released on Switch in May this year and finally made its way to Steam, and tells the tale of ghosts in an abandoned town. Now I suppose it might be controversial to include this quote-unquote game, since it is pretty much a visual novel as the genre suggests, and that there are no quick time events, no branching scenarios and so on, being a linear story through and through, and might be more akin to a book, but the gorgeous visuals alone gives it a spot on the list. This video is brought to you by Wandering Sword, a unique Chinese martial arts or wuxia themed RPG that is releasing today on the 15th of September on Steam, so if interested, pick it up via the link in the description below. It tells the tale of a young swordsman entangled in the feud, having to go on a journey across ancient China, recruiting allies, battling foes, training in his pugilistic ways, and to go on an epic adventure to become a grandmaster. Me being me, of course the pixel art here is a highlight, mixing 2D sprites with 3D environments and looks fantastic, but even more so is its dual mode combat system, allowing you to switch between turn-based and real-time, which caters to both traditional turn-based RPG players as well as those that prefer more action. The RPG progression also looks fascinating, with different martial arts moves and weapons to master, where you advance through cultivating your energy in meridian points, which looks like a twist on the skill tree concept. In conjunction with the launch, the developers are running a giveaway on Twitter for keys to the full game, so hop on over there to take part, link in the description below as well. We also have the 1.0 release of Draft of Darkness, which mixes and mashes together all sorts of genres in that it's a Darkest Dungeon-like turn-based RPG in one sense, having positional combat and also overworld exploration, but combines that with a deck building element and the whole survival horror vibe. The intentionally lo-fi aesthetics of the game looks good and is in line with survival horror, in which you're recruiting your own team of weirdos to take on the enemies. The grimdark post-apocalyptic city is neat, with the game gradually becoming more and more challenging as you defeat more enemies. It does also have the roguelite elements of procedural generation for replayability, as well as a meta currency to unlock new cards, and even where your narrative choices carry across from different runs, definitely being of interest to fans of this subgenre. An impressive and ambitious sandbox survival RPG is Age of Reforging the Freelands, a game that kind of looks like a classic party-based CRPG, but appears to be much more freeform in terms of structure. The world will react to your actions, good or evil, and seems to have a little bit of a Fable vibe to it. Others have likened it to Mount and Blade, and is that sort of freeform experience, although do note that it is in early access, is from a solo developer and appears to have optimization and performance issues at the moment. From the opening notes of this trailer, I'm sure that you can guess what kind of game this is, since of course, Retro Mystery Club Volume 1, the Ise-Shima case, is a detective mystery title that nailed exactly what they are going for. In fact, this game is inspired by the Famicom Detective Club series and is a real throwback in that way, with the art being done by Famitsu magazine illustrator Kiyokazu Arai, and while I'm not familiar with the name, the art does look great for a throwback title. a murder has occurred and you need to solve it, with things somehow being linked to a black pearl known as the Indigo Moon, so the game is afoot. The developers of Monster Train are currently in the middle of making Inkbound, which just released the Starship of Terrors update. And while I thought it did get an update-specific trailer, that is not the case and is just a general new gameplay trailer, which I have to say is miles better than their original. This game is quite the curiosity, self-describing as a turn-based tactical action roguelike, so you see the contradiction here. One of the most significant changes in this update is that they are now supporting offline play, which was the huge sticking point at launch, as well as a new hero in the Star Captain, a new book known as the Derelict Starship, the trinket system, daily challenges, leaderboards, and a bunch of reworks and quality of life improvements, possibly being the tipping point for this game's long-term success. You guys made fun of my pronunciation the last time I talked about this game, so I'll give it a pass this time, where apparently this is the French word for rabbit or bunny, and it's a beautiful hand-drawn precision platformer which released out of early access. 5 bunnies must work together to explore the world and to find a new home after being evicted from their previous burrow by construction work, which of course brings them through a number of challenging levels in the process. It is one of the most beautiful games that I've come across, so if you love games like Celeste, do give this a go. One of the more interesting updates to come along is that of Virgo vs the Zodiac, Boss Rush and Zodiac Memories, an update to an underrated JRPG from 2019, so I was not expecting this to drop 3+ years after the fact. I always advise developers against releasing games in December due to Game of the Year season and the holiday period, meaning that the likelihood of their game being covered is reduced, which seems to be the case for this, but over the long run has been doing okay. This update, obviously, adds a boss rush mode where you battle consecutive bosses, but more interesting are the Zodiac Memories, in which you experience the story from the perspective of these other characters while the main character, Virgo, is off doing something else, adding to and fleshing out this universe even more. While writing this script, I realized that there just so happened to be a number of deck-building auto-battler roguelites in this video, so apologies if you're not a fan, but I do think that there's something to looper tactics as well. This has more of a classic lane-based board, think Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone, in which units placed down directly attack in front of them, hitting enemy units if one is there, or your opponent if there isn't, with the various strategies and synergies that you can create being part of the fun. There is overworld exploration, permanent upgrades for your cards, as well as some pretty nice art, so if you love this subgenre, do give it a go. The developer of Edge of War did reach out to me via email and is of interest since they previously made the CRPG Iron Danger, which is alright, and they're back with another such title. It seems to be set in a classic fantasy world, but is inspired by Finnish folklore, which will be different from the now more common Slavic mythology due to the success of The Witcher, so you might just see something new. It has a semi-procedurally generated world, but does also have handcrafted quests, and the developers do also promise that every quest holds weight and significance and will affect the world in a meaningful way. In a month where Baldur's Gate 3 dominated, this has gone under the radar, and to kick them while they were down, apparently they had a publisher in place, but the other party pulled out at the last minute and they had to launch, so if you're in the mood for another party-based isometric turn-based RPG and want to support an indie dev, this might be worth a look. one of the best auto battlers also released out of early access in Hadean Tactics, one that came up during the auto chess boom and continued to chug along in early access, with this 1.0 version being great and worth a play. You're recruiting and combining units and strategically arranging them on the grid, after which they auto-engage in combat, but with the difference here being an active element in which you can interfere with your cards. There are 3 main heroes with their own decks and 6 variants on these, and with 34 units and 50 plus enemy types, has plenty of strategy and is one of the hidden gems of the year. Surprise releases don't usually work out since you need to properly market your game prior to launch in order to get a decent result, but apparently Sprawl has defied the odds, being shadow dropped at Gamescom last month and has done well so far. This is an all-action first-person shooter that looks awesome, being set in an endless cyberpunk megalopolis where the militarized government is the primary antagonist here. It is all shooty bang bang fun and crucially takes inspiration from Quake rather than the more common Doom, Call of Duty or Battlefield inspirations, so if you want a very fast-paced action title with a modernized throwback look, this is one to pick up. Just a quick one here, since one of the best games of last year has gotten yet another paid DLC titled Golden Idol Mysteries: The Lemurian Vampire, with 3 new scenarios surrounding Monkey Paw Island and the Fountain of Youth. With this, Return of the Obra Dinn-like detective game is great and was among the best games of 2022, which you can find in this video.